Great deal. Casio's $40. My low overhead ensures you great savings. Casio 45s, $40. $40. Great deal, sir. Great deal. $40. Anyone can be a musician. Just try it. It's a great gift. Step right up, play your Casio.
And this is gold. Are you not getting this gold?
I got the red lights on, Jim. Red light.
Movie's over. Light comes on.
It's too bright. How am I going to sleep?
Welcome to Lost and Found and Rewound, where we realized the dark tone of our last review episode was due to a recent political event. Since that time, the results of that event are taking shape in our great nation, and everything is fine. You won't be hearing any more doomsday talk from us. You'll just hear us analyze a film that takes a fascinating look at race, immigration, and assimilation in the 1980s, something that has evolved materially in the context of today's political climate. I'm Chris Lost.
I'm Found Jim.
And I am Hoffmeister.
Hoffmeister. You are scraping the bottom of the keg
Hoffmeister.
with that one.
Hoffmeister Rick Rewound.
Well, we just watched The Brother from Another Planet. Jim, do you want to provide a synopsis of that movie?
An escaped slave from another planet who crashes at Ellis Island in New York is on the run. Men in black after him, agents trying to track him down. So he's on the run in New York trying to assimilate, make his way, and he's lost in this alien planet. It's all about him trying to survive, and it's all a metaphor. He doesn't really have to be from another planet. It's all, like you said, it's parallels reality, present day.
He has a camera eye.
Yeah.
It feels like at one point a rich white mogul is profiting off of the downtrodden.
Yeah, he's got real estate.
Yeah, a rich white real estate mogul is profiting off the downtrodden in this film.
It's by John Sayles, who, I remember, I'm trying to think of the first time I saw this movie. Of course, it was probably, I don't know if it was on videotape or maybe it's one of these things I saw at the Fine Arts. I've talked about in the past, taking the train before I could drive, taking the train downtown Chicago, and all the cool movies were shown at the Fine Arts Theater on Michigan Avenue, and where I saw Stranger Than Paradise and Stop Making Sense. I have a feeling maybe I saw that there too. Could have just been a rental. Yeah, this is one of the first ones I thought of too when we thought about this podcast. It was like, oh, this is 1984. I remember watching this. So I was 15, and it stuck with me. All the John Sayles movies I've seen I really like, but they're very simple, like low budget. This is definitely a low budget movie. I think he talks in an interview. He talked about how they were trying to make Matewan, which I've seen, I think came out after this, but he was already trying to make Matewan, and the money fell through or at like the last minute, and so they had nothing to do, and he had some dreams about just crazy little dreams, and he just kind of pieced together this movie, The Brother from Another Planet, from these dreams, and it's like, I think I can make this for about $400,000, I think he said, and I think it was filmed in like 4 weeks and stuff. So it was just kind of like, well, we can't make this Matewan movie that we want to make that's much more expensive, so let's just do this. And I think it's really effective. Or it's just, I love these kind of very low budget and simple. It's a sci-fi movie, I guess, but it doesn't take any special effects. It doesn't take huge amounts of money to make a sci-fi movie. You can just get the ideas across very simply and just simple camera tricks and things. And yeah, it's always stuck with me.
It's a phenomenal movie.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a hell of a performance. Joe Morton?
Yeah.
I watched a bunch of interviews with him today, and he was talking about how this is his favorite film. I actually watched, who's the guy? Ryan Seacrest and Kelly Ripa had him on because he's on some popular show. And this was a couple of years ago, 2 years ago. They asked him about what his favorite movie was, and he called out this film, and they didn't know what to say. Like, they didn't know how to continue the interview. It was funny watching them stumble through it.
It goes back to my anger at Jimmy Fallon when he asked Keith Richards, what's your favorite Stones record? And Keith Richards said Between the Buttons, which I've never heard him say. And it's like nobody ever says they like that record. And then Jimmy Fallon goes, yeah, but Exile on Main Street's really good, right? And then they just went on and I screamed. I literally screamed at the TV. I was like, I would like to hear Keith Richards talk about Between the Buttons. I do not need to hear him talk about Exile on Main Street anymore. I would like to hear, it's like these hosts clueless.
I've heard you tell that story, and I didn't think of it when I was watching that, but that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
They didn't know what to ask him.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, sounds really, Kelly Ripa's like, that sounds really interesting. And then I watched an interview even earlier than that with Arsenio Hall. He came on the Arsenio Hall show. And again, he was not promoting. It was years after this film, but Arsenio knew this film and was like all about it. Gave it the time. I mean, they didn't give it a lot of time because it's a short interview with Arsenio and they had to promote something else. But Arsenio was cool enough to understand that was his film. And then in several other interviews, he called, like he did some showings of it. They showed him being interviewed either before or after the film, and he would always say this was his favorite film of all time. So he said that he would go on auditions, and he has a very like deep classical voice. You could see him doing Shakespeare.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what. I've seen. Well, John Sayles talking about that too, like how ironic he felt kind of bad. It was like he knew him from the theater, and he's this known Shakespearean actor, this great voice, and I cast him as a mute. He felt kind of bad about that, but it was like,
well, and then people would say to him, "Thank you for coming to the audition. We love you in The Brother from Another Planet. We didn't realize what your real voice sounded like." And he's like, and that's the point of every audition when I knew I didn't get the part.
You don't sound like what I think the mute alien should sound like. Yeah.
Exactly.
I'd forgotten. I looked him up. I'd forgotten. I mean, I obviously recognize. I'd always recognize. Oh, it's the brother from another planet. Forgotten that he was in Terminator 2. He's the computer guy, right? He's basically the key to the downfall, right?
Right.
It's
Yeah,
like
that's
the Terminator is going to kill him.
He's also in, you had mentioned the Snyder cut of Justice League. He's in that film.
Yeah, like I care.
He plays Cyborg's dad.
Cyborg.
Come on, Rick.
Wow, that's a great name. Is that a bad guy?
Cyborg is a good guy. He's
Really?
a hero. Yeah. Yeah, he plays Silius Stone. And of course, the story of Silius Stone is he brings back using he's a scientist and he conjures up somebody who kills his wife and almost kills his son, and then he has to put his son in a cyborg form so that he doesn't die. That's how Cyborg is created.
And it feels like this. It's. I mean, all props to Joe Morton, but it sounds like it's like stunt casting. It's basically Zack Snyder trying to be cool by saying, "Oh, I'm gonna," and probably it's not. "Oh, I'm gonna have the brother from another planet." It's probably I'm gonna have the guy from Terminator 2,
or the guy from Godzilla King of Monsters.
Yeah.
Or the guy from Speed.
Yeah, that's right. He's in Speed.
Or the guy from The Equalizer. Or Trouble in Mind. That's a movie I've never seen.
Is that?
But was always at Showtime Video.
That's the Alan Rudolph movie with Chris Christopherson. Is that Trouble in Mind?
I think, I just saw that today. So
yeah. So that's I feel like all these films, these were ones that I would see at the college weekend movie club showings, and definitely Trouble in Mind was another. One of the from that era. Oh, he's in Trouble in Mind with Keith Carradine.
Have you seen Trouble in Mind?
Yeah.
I've never seen it. I need to
crazy.
watch it. It'd be a good
I
film
remember
for
it being
this
crazy.
podcast.
All the Alan Rudolph movies are pretty crazy.
I've heard it's insane.
That one, I feel like if it's where Keith Carradine gets weird. It's almost Lynchian in a weird way, not like a happy Lynch.
Joe Morton does say it's the Museum of the City of New York interview before the showing of the film, and it was in 2023. And he talks about the gentrification of Harlem, and he talks about that line, how the magician makes all the white people disappear.
Yeah.
Because the train's going to go into Harlem. And he's like, that's not how it is anymore. Because basically, it's been taken over.
Full of white people.
Yeah.
And Fisher Stevens playing the magician. So
is that who that was?
Yeah. From Hackers and Short Circuit. I think he's in Short Circuit, right? Remember, we went to the MCA and saw a film that he had done. It was like 20 years ago. Like he had shot it on digital. I think it was like he had done some kind of digital film, showed it, and then he was sitting. Yeah, that was him. And I'm trying to figure out what film it was because I was looking through his IMDb. It's very, very weird. I have no idea, but it was
Did he talk about?
He did a little talk. I think maybe it was a short film. It was early digital filmmaking. First person I heard say, "Oh, you need to shoot when it's overcast with digital video because everything will blow out if you don't. If it's too sunny, it doesn't look good." So he would just film in quotes on a rainy day, overcast days, and then also stealing everything. It was all stolen shots in New York City because he could do it because it was a digital camera, right? It didn't have the full film crew.
Sayles, this is early in his career, Jim. Do you know what music videos he was shooting? He's a music video director.
It's not his. He was a independent filmmaker who then did music videos, right? I think it's the other way around.
He was a writer. He worked for Roger Corman.
Yeah, he's one of the Corman crew.
Yes, he is. But he was doing, we talked about Scorsese. What Scorsese video did Springsteen do? Was it Can't Start a Fire with Courtney Cox?
What Springsteen video did Scorsese do?
Yeah.
Because I didn't know Bruce made... I've never seen any of Martin Scorsese's music videos where he's performing.
He started out doing music. He started out doing Can't Start... Whatever that be. Well, the one that Courtney Cox is dancing?
Yeah. Dancing
in the dark. Yeah. The one where Courtney Cox is dancing in the dark? What Springsteen video is that?
She's dancing on stage with him. The thing is, though, is that first the Scorsese, what's the student film? The black and white one with Harvey Keitel. And
Alice?
It's got all of the... No, earlier. Really, really early. And it's got all the needle drops. It's got all the pop music, like really loud girl group music. And it's... So he was kind of doing music videos, Scorsese, starting out. I mean, he was definitely, from the beginning, he was doing soundtracks with existing records.
What Sayles did from the same record, Born in the USA, I'm on Fire, and Glory Days. He did those music videos.
Okay.
Glory Days, I remember. That's the baseball one.
Yeah.
So John Sayles has got a baseball thing, obviously.
Yeah, with 8 Men Out.
Yeah. And then in this film, talking about the Chicago Cubs, right? Ernie Banks.
Yeah.
And
the baseball bats and the fight scene. Yeah, I didn't meant to look that up. I wonder if he played baseball. He's such a athletic. He's the huge guy. John Sayles. I think he's like 6'4", and he's really athletic looking. Maybe he was a baseball player.
Clearly, he did like a video intro, 45-second intro to a showing of this film recently, and he mentions, and I forget, some baseball player that was like he's like blah 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 was my favorite baseball player of all time, and somehow he ties that back to. I think the film festival was about black superheroes, and that's why they were showing The Brother from Another Planet. And he talks about this baseball player who was his favorite baseball player. He considered him a black superhero.
Is that Ernie Banks?
It wasn't Ernie Banks.
Who's That Knocking at My Door is the name of the Scorsese movie for all of you yelling at your earbuds. For me, not remembering the name of it.
The thousands of listeners.
Yes.
Actually, really quick aside, and we'll get back to the film in a second. Our listenership has really escalated.
Escalated. I don't like that term. It feels, again, like aggressive.
I like that
like
verb.
A problem.
I would encourage everybody to listen to the fast forwards. It seems people listen to the main episodes and people listen to both, but not as many people listen to the fast forwards. But they're half the story. So I would go back and listen to those.
Please, people.
Oh, we shouldn't be. Oh yeah, no call to action. Sorry about that. I'll just say the fast forwards are half the story. Let's just strike my call to action there. 89% critics on Rotten Tomatoes, 75% audience. Critics mostly said funny but heavy on the social commentary, sort of the balance.
Oh, God forbid.
Right. A black E.T. is what. But you hit on those, Jim, when you're reading the taglines, right?
Cheers
in Harlem. What is it? Cheers goes to Harlem.
Cheers goes to Harlem.
Mars on the Hudson. And E.T. rides the Underground Railroad.
Wow.
Well, and they were saying this was like Moscow on the Hudson.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Moscow. Oh,
like
right.
Fish out of water kind of thing.
Yeah.
I watched the Siskel and Ebert episode where they reviewed this movie. 2 thumbs up. They loved it.
Yeah, they were always big John Sayles. I remember them talking about the return of the
Secaucus 7.
What was it when we were in the van and we were asking, do you know where? Oh, no, that was Paramus.
Is this Paramus? Paramus? You mean Paramus? Or did you? Yeah, it's Paramus is correct.
Yeah, you mean Paramus? You're in Paramus. Yeah, Secaucus is different. Yeah, okay, I always get those confused.
This is Paramus. Paramus?
Is that from Moscow on the Hudson or something? What
It's from our
van.
Yeah.
Van.
Back in the day when you had to ask people directions and stuff, and they would.
You ask a little old lady on the East Coast.
And
Is this Paramus? 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 You mean Paramus? This is Paramus. You're in Paramus. Like just total baffled and just disgust.
Yeah.
Paramus? What are you saying?
Midwest on the Hudson.
Yeah, we were the guys in the bar, the Cubs, the guys from Indiana in this movie.
Ernie Banks.
Mr. Cub.
My wife, I took her out to meet my grandmother who, lived in Queens her whole life. She was a tiny Italian woman with a big attitude or not big attitude, but like she wasn't afraid to say things to scare people. And she said, my wife said something like that. She's like, where is this or that? Or, and she's like, what are you, stupid? Like when she just met my wife asked a simple question like, where's the deli, down the street or something? And she's like, what are you, stupid? My wife to this day still like traumatized by that. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like that was a kind answer.
You got off easy.
Yeah.
Toots.
I mean, she'd always tell every woman in our family, she would tell that they were overweight. Oh my God, you're so overweight. Like this is the first thing she'd say to them. So every, like one of my cousins and my sister were traumatized by my grandmother. They're all, great shape. They're, oh, grandma.
That reminds me, I just watched a movie, Shiva Baby. It's by the actress and director that did Bottoms, and there's a lot of weight stuff in that. It's Jewish family, and all talking about weight,
being overweight. Yeah.
It was like a constant underlying theme with the family.
The trick to my grandmother was that you had to throw it back at her. And like all of us were so intimidated by her that none of us would. So like my grandma was just like, all she wanted was intellectual discourse. And she thought her way of getting it was to insult you and get you to argue with her.
Get you worked up.
For a long time, I just didn't talk to my grandmother. And then my wife, oddly enough, encouraged me, you should talk to your grandmother. She keeps calling to talk to you. So I said, I get her on the phone. And I'm like, fine, well, I'm going to tell her what I think of her. So she gets on the phone. She says some insulting things. I started arguing with her, and we spent like 2 or 3 hours on the phone having this incredible conversation about like religion and politics and family. And it was realized, all she ever wanted was someone to have an intelligent conversation with her.
Some fat kid to talk to her.
Right, some fat kid to mouth off to her. And instead, we all just cowered. The last 5 years of my grandmother's life, and she and I had a great relationship. But the previous 92, well, I guess I wasn't around for all 92 of them.
The cinematographer is what, Ernest Dickerson?
Yeah.
It's like one of his first movies, but he's worked with Spike Lee. This is like right when he just started, or I guess John Sayles said he had seen, there's a Spike Lee short, which I've never seen.
We Cut Heads? It's the barbershop, right? Yeah.
And so he had seen that. And
it was like, and I'm trying to remember if Ernest Dickerson was he at NYU with Spike Lee, or was it that he was a little older?
I don't know.
I can't remember. Yeah.
John Sayles was saying he was trying to get, the crew to be, have black crew, like looking for cinematographer. Like he was looking around and it was like, he just kind of happened to see this and it was like, it was amazing. And it was like, oh, this guy's great. And it was very lucky and it worked out. And he found him, or just was like, oh, he just had seen the Spike Lee short. And it was all filmed like in Harlem. And he was talking about, John Sayles was talking about how, well, one thing about it being cheap, the low budget helped was that the main character was mute. So he didn't have to record dialogue for him. So he could go out and shoot stuff with him, with Joe Morton, and they didn't need the sound crew really. Or, it was like I could just film stuff with him, and it was like much cheaper, so that helped with the cost. But also he was saying that filming in Harlem, it was like the Teamsters Union wasn't interested. Once they found out when they were filming in Harlem, it was like, it was going to probably cost a ton more. It was like they got involved and it was like, it's okay. Well, and they just filmed all in Harlem and it was easy to park. It was like kind of, sort of empty, and it was like no problem. It was just like there were lots of people around and curious. And that's the one thing he said in the one scene where the brother takes heroin, and stumbles out completely high and spins around and the camera goes spinning around and it goes up in the sky. He said it's because there are about 200 or 300 people watching, like standing in the street all around in that scene. And it's like, how are we going to do this? And then the cinematographer, the cameraman said, he's high, just pointed up in the sky. So he just put the camera over everybody's heads. If the camera was down, there'd be the whole street was filled with people. So in that shot, it goes up into the street lights and then comes back around to his face.
You can file that under that's not a problem, that's a solution,
exactly.
Like Michael and I always say. And remember The Hit?
Yeah.
When they had to do that shot, that beautiful shot where he crawls out of the car and they shoot it from the sky straight down at the car. They do that because they're shooting it at a gas station in London. And they couldn't show they didn't have the
scenery, the Spain, all the background.
So brilliant.
Yeah.
Another exciting thing about Ernest Dickerson is apparently he shot the White Lines video, the video for White Lines by Grandmaster Flash and Mel.
What Spike Lee movies did he shoot?
Up until he went through to Malcolm X, and then it looks like he started directing everything. Do the Right Thing, School Days, everything from until
She's Got to Have it.
She's got to have it
just after this. A couple of years, I think, after Brother from Another Planet.
Because it was shot really boldly. He did a really nice job framing all the shots, and the colors were really rich, and $350,000 budget. So less than $400,000 and $4 million at the box office. So it made 11.4 times the budget. That's an amazing success.
Yeah.
Not necessarily big Hollywood dollars, but certainly you would want to hand this guy another $500,000 to do a movie.
Did that happen? I feel like John Sayles is always kind of
I'm sure it's
scrambled.
Tough. Yeah. Well, Matewan definitely got made after this sometime, maybe
that's where he got years. Yeah, and then 8 Men Out, those are big budget.
Bigger, like big budget. Pretty independent for an independent movie, whatever. They're definitely bigger budgets. Maggie Renzi is his partner who produced all those movies too, and is definitely a main part of. They're like a team, so she's been involved in all his movies too. But she's like, I think, became basically the producer for all these movies.
I've only seen one other John Sayles movie. I'm gonna have to catch up on his stuff because this movie is great.
The other thing about Maggie Renzi was that she's in the movie too. I think she's in several of his movies. I think she's the one in the office, the
at the desk, like a
government agency where she
chases off
the Men in Black guys with you need to fill out all these forms. I think that's her, but she's mainly the producer. She produces all the movies.
Did you guys notice the metaphorical sex scene in this film?
The video game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Oh, yeah. Okay, where he
basically
tweaks the machine.
She's basically no video game machine can satisfy her, basically, and then he tweaks the machine to go crazy, and she digs it.
So game positive theme.
Pro game, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And pro female gamers.
Yeah, the only other female gamers I can think of are like the gamer in Ferris Bueller's Day Off who, the principal, says, "Your ass is mine." And then she turns around and spits soda at him. I'm trying to think of other female arcade.
It's very similar. Yeah, it's very similar character.
Yeah. Like an archetype.
Independent gamer girl. Like, well, don't take any shit.
Manic pixie gamer girl.
Kansas City. Food-wise, once only known as a barbecue town. But thanks to the Taco the Town podcast, everything has changed. Kansas City has rightfully taken its place as a taco paradise, smack dab in the middle of the USA, and all of these tacos belong to us on the Taco the Town podcast. My name is W. David Keith, certified tacoholic, and I live a very taco-centric lifestyle. On the Taco the Town podcast, We're tasting every taco in the town. We shine a light on all of the taco-rific tacos Kansas City has to offer, unearthing great taco memories, checking the latest stories in taco news, and interviewing actors, reporters, chefs, politicians, and musicians about their love for tacos. If you love tacos like I do, you're gonna love Taco the Town. Available wherever you get your taco podcasts. A proud member of the Lotus Pod Podcasting Network.
Early on in his career, Sayles wrote this film called Alligator.
What's it about?
Have you guys seen Alligator?
I haven't, but I've heard of it.
It was like
not as good as Piranha, right?
I don't know. I loved Alligator. It was a CBS late night movie, and the plot was some little girl gets an alligator, brings it home, and her dad's like, "You can't have that alligator," and he flushes it down the toilet.
Oh.
And it eats all these scientific experiments that people are doing to try and make animals bigger, so they like for the food industry. Mm-hmm. And it becomes gigantic, and then just starts killing everybody. I loved it. I love a good creature feature, and Sayles wrote that. He also wrote The Howling.
Oh, yeah.
And Clan of the Cave Bear, so another film where people don't talk. So yeah, what kind of writer is he? I guess he just.
That's not really. It just makes the script easier, I guess.
Right.
You don't have to write any dialogue. You just write
stage directions.
Yeah.
Called himself a Catholic atheist. We talked a lot about Catholics at dinner today.
The Catholics, as I like to say, we talked a lot about the Catholics.
Right. We talked a lot about the Catholics. Lone Star is the other film of his that I've seen that he wrote and directed, which was an awesome movie. Chris Cooper.
That's the one. Actually, I haven't seen that one. That's the one I know. Yeah, I've heard. Yeah, I've heard about it.
I've seen it, but I get it mixed up with No Country for Old Men.
No, it's not No Country for Old Men.
I know it's not. I know it's
film.
not. I know, but I get them mixed up. But they're from around the same time, right? Lone Star's earlier.
Lone Star's earlier.
Is Chris Christopherson in Lone Star?
He is.
Yeah. Okay.
And that independent film actor Matthew McConaughey, you might know him.
Oh wow,
from
I don't remember that.
Dazed and Confused.
Yeah.
So I went down a rabbit hole because Chris Cooper, I didn't realize, is from Kansas City, Missouri, and went to the University of Missouri to study theater. And so I looked up all the artists that are from University of Missouri. I thought I'd go through a few of them. John Hamm, we've talked about that before. Sheryl Crow, Robert Loggia from the University of Missouri. Brad Pitt, of course.
Maybe it's Robert Loggia. I think it's Robert Loggia instead of Ben Gazzara, who's the road rage person in one of the Lynch movies.
Yes, it's Robert Loggia.
See?
It's Robert Loggia.
Yeah, so Ben Gazzara
in Lost Highway.
Yeah, okay, Lost Highway. Okay.
He plays a porn king.
No, that's Ben Gazzara in The Big Lebowski.
Big Lebowski, right.
Robert Loggia
is also
in the what's his face, the Launer house in one of the archetypes. Is it Launer?
Sounds right.
It's the guy, that's in the James Bond movie, the famous
I think
L.A. house guy.
It's all going to become one big movie. Just kind of like how, in my mind, like every club now and every show I've ever played, it's just all in one big giant club that looks kind of the same. It's all blurred into this one big kind of generic venue. And I feel like that's what's happening with movies in my head now.
That's
Just
what's
one
happening.
big giant, clump.
George C. Scott went to the University of Missouri. Debbie Turner Bell, Miss America in 1990. When you guys were staying at my house, you were sleeping just a half a block from Debbie Turner Bell. She was just right over the fence there. Kate Capshaw.
Mrs. Spielberg?
Yeah, Steven Spielberg is her husband. Sally Ann Salzano created TV shows including The Jersey Shore, Tennessee Williams, Tom Berenger, all those universities.
Okay, these weren't shows. There wasn't a show called Tennessee Williams.
No,
she just made one show, The Jersey Shore.
Yeah, Jersey Shore.
And then Tennessee Williams. Wow, that's interesting.
And Tom Berenger all went to University of Missouri. And that was all on the University of Missouri website. But then when I looked at their list of CEOs, I wasn't on it. They had Sam Walton.
Sam went to? Wow.
Yeah, not me. I mean, I went there, but I didn't get on the website.
Are you CEO now?
I'm CEO of my music business.
Oh, okay. All right.
I'm CFO of this business.
Okay.
Whatever this enterprise is.
Thought your day gig It was like, I think I would have heard about it. If I had heard about that, I'd be like, hey, Chris, can I have a couple bucks?
Other things about Sayles or the movie. What'd you like about it, Rick?
Oh, yeah, I love this movie. It's possible I haven't seen it for 40 years.
It's 42 years old, right?
Yeah.
41 years old.
You need the calculator.
41. I got
Should
it.
we pause it?
That's all right.
Do the calculations. The all-important calculation.
So did you saw it when it came out?
Yeah, I feel like I saw it projected, not in a theater, but in like a hall, like a big screen in a 16 millimeter projection.
In 84, though? You weren't in college in 84.
I started in 84, so maybe 85.
Yeah, I remember seeing it when it came out. I think
it's possible we went to see it.
Yeah.
And I realized, so I was looking at the timeline, and School Days is before Do the Right Thing.
Yeah.
Like Jim and I went to see School Days in the theater.
I think at the Hillside Twin, which was the only place would show it, or would show even the later Spike Lee movies. They weren't shown out here. Suburbs of Chicago, it was kind of hard to find showings of Spike Lee movie. Even Do the Right Thing got big. I think we saw it at the Hillside Twin. It was like that was the only, we saw School Days, which was way more under the radar, was not a huge thing whereas Do the Right Thing was a phenomenon, kind of was famous or became big.
But it's all connected to the Siskel and Ebert. I feel like they were pushing John Sayles. They pushed Spike Lee, all that stuff. They were pretty instrumental, at least in me finding out about those.
Well, the Hillside Twin always had a more diverse audience. I remember for some reason thought Friday the 13th Part 4 was a good horror movie, like they had returned to form. But really, it was just because I went to see it at Hillside Twin, and the whole audience was like yelling and screaming at the movie and laughing.
Yeah,
it was like one of those people weren't just sitting there watching the movie; they were interacting with it.
Yeah.
And I mistook that for being that the film was good. In reality, the experience
was good.
The audience was just special. It was just a special audience. So, speaking of diversity, Sayles, do you think he wrote this whole film? Or do you think, because like he is trying to give a voice to the Black experience in Harlem?
Some of it, and then I think also it's the immigrant experience.
Right.
Just generally, yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of his films that have that kind of progressive social commentary. So I think it's just from his, it's where he's coming from. Like a classic socialist, progressive, realist, filmmaking perspective.
Yeah, because all the actor interviews, at least the lead, he loved Sayles, loved the writing, and loved the movie. So it must have been accurate, or at least maybe not accurate, but it said something that rang true, I guess, for the actors.
Yeah.
And I love the scene where the men in black, who are two white dudes from the brothers' planet,
hunting him down.
They come into the bar, and then all those guys they're going to stand up and fight for him. Obviously they can't because they're fighting aliens, but
that was one of the interviews. John Sayles was talking about that. The guy asked him the interview about fighting. What was it? Since John Sayles was in the movie, and in that fight, he's like, "What was it like fighting?" What's his name? Steve James, who's the bar owner, who's this huge guy who's in all these action movies. He's like kung fu guy, and
he's in Warriors, right? Is he the one?
I think so. Yeah.
He's one of the baseball guys.
Yeah, did stunts and stuff, and he's in a lot of weird kung fu movies, like American Ninja. He's in all the American Ninja movies, but
he's also in To Live and Die in L.A. I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker. He's a baseball fury.
I love the baseball furies. I have baseball furies action figures. My brother-in-law gave them to me.
But they were him and the other guy, Tom Wright is the other guy who works at the government, the employment, whatever, immigration, the guy who hangs out at the bar. He's also like a stuntman kind of guy in real life. That was all pretty much, it was the two of them kind of did that whole fight scene, or they were kind of in charge. And John Sayles said that, Steve James said to tell him that you're going to get a lot of adrenaline. So you got to just slow everything down. He's like telling John Sayles in the middle of the fight, it's just like, you're going to get carried away. And it's just like, you just got to slow everything down, but those two guys really kind of did the whole fight scene, and they got the idea. It was like, I think they were filming in the real bar, and the bar was going to open, so they only had this limited time. And so it was like 6:00 it was going to open. So he said the last like 5 minutes, what's his name again? Tom Wright, the other guy, who's the kind of more mild-mannered, office worker guy with the briefcase, he did the backflip. That's the brother from another planet, and he escapes.
Oh, okay.
I think that's Tom Wright doing that.
That's great.
But they asked him about how they had to wrap up the fight, and it's like they're in the back. It's like how are we going to get out? And then one of them suggests, just start throwing. They just start they're throwing all the pool cues and the pool balls. So they just fight their way back through, and that was because they just ran out of time, and it was like, okay, let's just start throwing stuff. And
it's the Three Stooges thing. Yeah. It's like on Friday afternoon, if they ran out of time, they just run into the sunset.
Yeah,
I think we can all say this film shouldn't be lost.
Oh, great.
Should it be found? Would you recommend it to a coworker? Let's say you're taking a 5-minute break from doing peer evaluations.
Yeah, at the cooler.
And you lean over.
The water cooler.
Like, hey, have you ever seen...
It's a good movie, Brother from Another Planet. The Brother from Another Planet. Yeah, oh yeah, no, it's a great movie. I love it. What I love about it, too, is it is an independent film. And it looks like an independent film. It's engaging and quirky, but also not basically like a miniature mainstream film. It's been a while since I've complained about this, but I have a little bit of resentment towards that sort of next generation, like the Wes Anderson independent film, like when independent films became these kind of what used to be Hollywood films, but then Hollywood stopped making those types of films. Whereas this, to me, when I watch it, it feels like this is what 80s independent film is. Creative, low budget, but still looks great, but also, and not all the acting is great necessarily, but it's like a really cool group of eclectic actors and just people. That's what I love about it. It's like a time capsule. It's like similar to the Jarmusch films.
It reminded me a bit of Dave Keith's films. Some of the line deliveries and stuff were funny, but they're like, oh, you would never keep that in a, quote, real movie.
Yeah.
That some of those were like, that's part of its charm. A little awkward or a little...
Yeah, and it goes back to that, like, the social realism kind of like films, and, you don't necessarily have professional actors, although this was chock full of professional actors, but you also sometimes have real people in there, and you get that little bit of reality as opposed to artifice.
Rick, you said you hadn't seen this movie in 40 years or maybe 40-ish years. Will you rewind it? Is this a film that should be rewatched?
Yeah, I think I'd watch it again. I'm getting to the point now where I don't want to rewatch movies too much. I think I'm good for another 10 years, maybe.
My wife rereads books.
Yeah, wow.
I made it sound on either this episode. I think they're fast forward for this that I read a lot of books. I don't, but I did. There was a period of time where I did read a lot of books, but I just don't have time to reread a book. That takes a lot of time. I mean, there's another book to read. Why would you reread the same book? Although I'm sure there's a lot of value you can get out of it. But I'm starting to get that way with movies too. Rick. Unless I'm so I would find an excuse. I would show this to my son and then watch it with him again.
Like The Thin Red Line. That's why I watched that, is because my son was like, oh, what would be the best Terrence Malick movie to be initiated into that? And I was like, Gates of Heaven, Days of Heaven. Sorry, there's so many movies. Gates of Heaven, Days of Heaven, Heaven's Gate. Gates of Heaven is Errol Morris, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Days of Heaven is good, but it's like, and then Badlands, there might be a little too much, but like, Thin Red Line, it's war, so that's maybe a little more engaging. And then
it's kind of war.
Yeah, it's kind of war. Yeah, exactly.
Like art war.
Yeah, art war, exactly. War poetry, right? Right? And so, yeah, it's that same kind of thing. Yeah, so I watched that again, because, to share it with someone.
What about you, Jim? How many times have you seen this film before today? Is this the second time you've seen it?
I watched it recently again before this, just within the past month.
Cheater.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You just want to make absolutely sure?
No.
I mean, I've come into this podcast with some real out there suggestions and thought that they were good. Rolled the dice.
I think it was before. Well, I guess I'd already chosen. I hadn't told you. I think it was after. Yeah, it must have been after I decided to pick it. It had been a while since, I think before that, I probably hadn't seen it in decades. Definitely stuck with me. Yeah, it was one. I think it was one of the ones like I said, when we started talking about this podcast, it was probably on the first list of movies that came to mind. What did I watch back then on tape or whatever that period? And I've had enough for a while, but I'll definitely come back to it. Like you said, 10 years or less.
I think what I'll do is watch a lot of John Sayles movies.
Yeah. I want to see, I've seen even the ones there's several I haven't seen, like Lone Star, but I've seen, like Mate One I've seen, and 8 Men Out and Limbo, and I remember liking all of those. So I definitely want to watch, especially 8 Men Out. I'm curious about to see that again.
So David Strathairn?
Yeah.
Strathairn? I don't know how you say his name.
Strathairn.
Yeah, who's in tons of his movies. And
he's
Limbo.
like Limbo,
Yeah,
and I think he's one of the main characters in Mate One, too.
Yeah, it was the other alien stalker, whatever.
Man in Black.
Yeah.
The short Man in Black.
It was also Oppenheimer in the made-for-TV PBS Oppenheimer movie from like 10 or 20 years ago. I watched part of that a while ago. Oh, no, not Oppenheimer. No, Stamp. No, he is... Now, wait a minute. So it's a different one, because there's also the one with what's his name from the guy who that was earlier. There are two. That's right.
Does each one of those films have a Barbie equivalent?
No,
that came out at those
probably.
times?
Yeah, you parallel the Barbie equivalents.
They did a good job with their physical acting, and they did speak,
Yeah.
but that whole sort of choreography they did, where one would go high, one would go low. They turned their heads in different directions. It didn't look perfectly choreographed, but it looked very weirdly organic, like organic for an alien world, for them to be in such sync.
And I guess a few of the scenes, Sayles said that they did them reverse.
Oh,
they're filmed like going into the bar. One of the times when they're going into the bar, the guys, they turn around on the bar stools and they go and sit down. Like, I don't know, it's the first time they come into the bar. They said that's all backwards. There's at least two shots, he said, that are filmed. They did it all walking backwards. So the film is run backwards. So just to give it a weird look, but it's really subtle.
It's really smart.
I looked for it this time after I'd seen that interview, and I think it's when they're going into the bar. There's a couple weird things but it's very smooth, but it just gives it this odd look to their movement.
There's a cell phone company commercial out right now. There's a scene where a guy looks to be completing the logo of the cell phone company against a brick wall with a can of spray paint.
Mm-hmm.
As he's moving the spray paint, these perfect lines are forming. I swear to God, he just has a white can of spray paint, and they shot him spraying over the perfectly painted logo and just did it in reverse. Why did you do that? I'm like, are other people noticing that, or is it just me like going crazy? Because you can see the paint; it's like going into the can.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Is that right? Yeah, and so it's removing itself from the logo, and when you reverse it, they're trying to make it look like he's finishing the logo with the can of spray paint, and I'm just like, why? Sorry, it's baffling. But anyway, I did like the reverse shots in this. I didn't notice them. They did make them look weird.
Just going through some of the actors, Bill Cobbs, who was he's kind of anti-immigrant, I guess, or he's just diseases from space and disease from
the Haitians
and things like that. The janitor from the Hudsucker Proxy. And then I just watched part of Demolition Man again. He's the old cop in Demolition Man. Like, he's the one who knows Sylvester Stallone. He was a kid when Sylvester Stallone got frozen, and then he's the one cop who's still on the police force when he gets unfrozen. And
You just watched that again?
I watched part of it. Yeah, I'll watch Demolition Man. If Demolition Man's on, this whatever Pluto or something, and I'll watch.
I can't figure you out.
Demolition Man's an amazing movie. You don't like Demolition Man?
I mean, it's fine.
It's great. Everything about it's so, and it's got Andre Gregory in it from My Dinner with Andre. He's the warden of the cryo prison. He's the one who's Wesley Snipes pulls his eye out. Actually, pulls his eye out to do the retinal scan.
Link to this movie.
He kills Andre Gregory, and then
I like Wesley Snipes just smashes that guy into the glass. He's like, "Whoa, watch yourself!" He just like totally just the dumb slapstick, but very violent or just sadistic, but that always made me laugh. And it was just he goes just bashes, and right when he comes back, he's just wandering around.
Yeah, and the little moment, like they in the soundtrack, like Wesley Snipes does little moves and stuff, or whenever he does a move, they play little sound effects, like like that's one of the first times, like that kind of cartoon-like thing. And then there's the whole thing with Taco Bell winning the fast food wars, and then everyone sings commercial jingles because that's pop music. The nostalgia or whatever, the classic rock is all like hot dog, like Oscar Mayer hot dog theme song and everything like that. The whole movie's great. The whole movie's great. Dennis Leary, even I can tolerate Dennis Leary in it as the underground leader.
Blowing my mind.
Sylvester Stallone, like knitting, because while he was in cryosleep, they programmed him with hobbies, and one of them was knitting. And so, like, he makes Sandra Bullock a sweater or something. It's like, I made this for you last night. It's like, I don't know what's going on. It's like they programmed me or something. It's like crazy stuff. There's so much of that movie that's amazing.
All right, I'm going to watch Demolition Man again.
Yeah, watch Demolition Man.
As you were going on about Demolition Man, like early on in the Demolition Man praises, I was like, is there another film called Demolition? What? Demolition Man? Is that a remake?
Is it like a Kurosawa movie? Isn't that?
Is there a Kurosawa Demolition Man?
Yeah, a couple of Sylvester Stallone movies where he's good. So I think Demolition Man he's great in. And what's the other one? Copland.
Copland, he's fantastic in Copland.
Copland, and then I guess Rocky. Rocky's good in the first Rocky.
Yeah, Rocky's great in the first Rocky.
Yeah, first Rocky. Who else? Josh Mostel. So the Casio salesman.
Yeah.
Zero Mostel's son. And what I realized is looking him up,
anyone can be a musician. Casio, $40.
This is amazing.
Yeah.
But he was in Harry and Tonto, that movie with Art Carney, and he plays a guy who doesn't talk.
Wow.
So I'm wondering if it's like a weird little reference. Or it's just like John Sayles thing. He talks a little bit in Harry and Tonto, but he talks very little. Like that's part of his character. This is where Carolyn Aaron, who's the woman who takes him in for a little while, she's
the big white girl.
Yeah, the big white girl. She's in like a bunch of Woody Allen movies. She's in Crimes and Misdemeanors. She's the sister,
right?
Who tells him the horrible story about the date,
right?
And then the wife later,
yeah, I looked her. Yeah, I was like, oh yeah, she's in all those Woody Allen movies, and I was trying to remember. Well, and she's in Deconstructing Harry, I think. Yeah,
she's in a lot of his films.
Well, yeah, I was trying to remember. I knew it once I saw it. I was like, oh yeah, I remember her from that, but I couldn't remember.
Yeah, she's in a bunch of them.
Scenes.
And what's weird is that I was at a bat mitzvah recently, and there's this older woman. Yeah, I was, and this older woman came up and gave a speech. I'm like, wow, that woman looks really familiar. Who is that? And then it's like, oh, it's that woman from the Woody Allen movie.
No way.
What?
Yeah, she was. Yeah.
Wait, you're seeing the woman from the film Here Today?
Yeah.
Was that a bat mitzvah that you were at recently?
Yeah.
And she wasn't on videotape? She was there live in person?
Yeah, in person. It was in Los Angeles.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're out there with famous
But it was like, so this is what always happens is if I'm around famous people. Like when I went to a thing in Chicago, actually, similar connection, and then there are a bunch of famous people backstage. And then
at the Chicago Theater, right?
Yeah, Tim Kazurinsky was there. I nearly shit myself. It was like there are other people, like super famous people backstage, and then it was like, I got to talk to Tim Kazurinsky.
So there's Wesley Snipes, there's Sly Stallone, and Tim Kazurinsky.
Yeah, it was just exciting to see Tim Kazurinsky.
Sandra Bullock, Tim Kazurinsky.
I talked to Tim Kazurinsky about...
Was it about Neighbors? No, that
and I screwed up. I was like, and I knew he was in Neighbors, but I thought he was in what's another movie? Yeah, I made a mistake, and I was like, but he said no, I was in Neighbors. I was like, he's the tow truck driver in Neighbors.
Yeah,
maybe I thought he was in the Blues Brothers, but I don't think I would have made that mistake.
No, how dare you? It's a Chicago film.
But it was similar, and I was mortified. But he was very nice. And then we talked about U of I. He went to U of I. That was a long time ago.
And so then you're in this other room full of famous people, and you're like, there's the woman from the brother from another planet. But you recognized her from the Woody Allen movies.
Woody Allen movie. I was like, it was great. It was very exciting.
Did you talk to her and say she was in the wrong movie? Or bring up some other movie?
This is why I don't talk to
You were like, you're
people.
amazing in Repo Man. And she's like, no, I was in the brother from another planet.
Yeah, I make mistakes like that all the time. I can't talk to famous people.
And that's the only reason you can't talk to famous people is because you'll make a mistake.
Right.
Otherwise,
I'm around them all the time.
Yeah, you'd just be talking to them every day. Me too. I just avoid making mistakes. Famous people that I'm around don't want to talk to me, so I don't have that problem.
Yeah, it's more like just going up to them and talking to them.
They're like, security? Who's this guy?
Chris, you look semi-important. I bet this has got to be some exec.
There was a time where Rose posted a picture of me talking with you all at lunch, and people thought I was, who's the lost guy?
Oh, the director, J.J. Abrams.
J.J. Abrams.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
Rose was like, guess who we're talking about our next project with? And then somebody wrote, J.J. Abrams? And put a question mark.
That's cool. Yeah.
And then now I look like the F1 Formula One. So I look like those people, J.J. Abrams, and then some Formula One driver that everybody stops me and goes, do you watch that Formula One reality show?
Well, it was a few years ago. I don't know if they're still talking about it, but I was going to bring this up to you. I never did. I forgot about it. He was the principal, whatever team principal they call him. He's like the manager, the team manager of the Formula One team. You know,
Yes.
He's like the main guy. And Ferrari, the guy who took over Ferrari about 10 years ago, or maybe it's probably not been that long. He could be like your cousin. He had these round black glasses. If you just got these round, really cool Italian glasses.
Yes. Yeah, well, I have those at home. I wear them every once in a while.
Maybe they're talking about that guy.
That's who they're talking
exactly,
about. Yeah, that's who they're talking. Because there's some Formula One TV show that has him on it.
Yeah, he must still be the guy. He took over several years ago. I was going to bring it up with that. I was like, I'm not going to. I don't know why I didn't bring it up, but I was like,
several other people did.
So everyone else, it was too obvious. It was like, but I would have done that. Yeah, it was years ago. I was going to bring that up with you, and it was like, have you seen this guy who just took over Ferrari? Are you related to? I can't remember his name. It's not.
Is it an Italian name?
Then there was, when I was young, they all thought I looked like John F. Kennedy Jr. when I didn't wear glasses. I don't know if you remember what I looked like when I was young. And then
that's a little humble brag there.
Yeah.
You know.
All the drunk,
used to tell
suburban,
like
frustrated housewives used to think I looked like JFK Jr. They'd grope me. And I was like, okay, this is what we're doing now. The only other person was my wife pointed out that we had a president a couple presidents ago who's actually back, got COVID. And one of the doctors on his team had my last name. And my wife was like, look, if you shave your head, you're this guy. And he totally looked. Wow. And he's from New York, so he must be in the bloodline somewhere.
Not the doctor with the long blonde hair and beard that would show up. The one that testified that the former and current president was the apex of health, like the crazy doctor.
No,
yeah.
No, this guy was on the COVID team.
Yeah, okay.
Shave, but if I shave my head,
it won't come back.
Well, probably won't. But the problem is that my head is incredibly misshapen because they pulled me out of my mom with the tongs.
Oh yeah,
that's why my head's all crooked.
Forceps.
So the longer my hair is, the less misshapen my head is. So I've got an ugly elderly stage coming sometime soon. Rick is contemplating that.
Yeah, I'm just like, when will it become an issue? And then have to end our interactions.
Oh, an issue for you?
Yeah.
To have to look at my ugly
That's what I was
head?
thinking, yeah. It's like when...
It's pretty selfish. I mean, I'll always love you, Rick, but I guess there'll come a day where that's not reciprocal. And that day was 2 years ago.
No, your hair's covering up the misshapen head. It's fine.
You're very superficial about your friendships.
Totally.
Okay. That's good. It just lets me know that I'm still passing.
Yep.
As long as we're still doing this show.
Yeah.
All right.
That's a weird ending.
There we go again with these great endings.
I think that you maybe edit before that.
No, I'm keeping all that in. That's all staying in. That's all gold. It'd be like throwing gold down the toilet.
Oh, wow.
Lost and Found and Rewound is fully funded by Lost and Found and Rewound Foundation funds. Lost and Found and Rewound does not use crowdfunding because our listeners have better things to do with their funding. There's no need to post reviews of Lost and Found and Rewound because our listeners have more valuable things to do with their time. In all sincerity, thank you for listening to the show. We truly appreciate it.
Lotus Pod.